Jody Rector, Planning and Zoning.
Phil Goldsmith, Township Attorney.
Trina Ingram, Planning and Zoning.
Dennis Kohler, Building Inspector.
Brad Helm, Planning Representative.
Al Darish, Chairman.
Jake Lake, Vice Chair.
Joe Gore, Township Trustee Representative.
All right, if we could all go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could go ahead, Ms. Rector, with the roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Potter. Here. Mr. Gore.
Here.
Mr. Lake.
Here.
Mr. Helm.
Here.
Mr. Dersch.
Here.
All present.
All right, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve tonight's agenda.
With Mr. Potter with support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Looking for an approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 meeting from the members who were present. Look for a motion for that.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes from our April 3rd meeting.
Support.
All in favor that are present?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Tonight for new business, we are looking for a motion to open the public hearing regarding the appeal of William and Mandy Pickard at 1785 Samaria Road, Temperance, Michigan, requesting a plus or minus 1.5 foot height variance for a fence.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to open the public hearing.
Looking for support? All right, Mr. Potter, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, motion carried. Ms. Rector, if you could, please.
Yes, again, the applicants are William and Mandy Pickard, 1785 West Samaria, Temperance, Michigan, 48182, parcel number 5802-009-01400, 4.81 acres, agriculturally in the Samaria Village Overlay District. And they are seeking a 1.5 foot height variance to construct a 7.5 foot tall privacy fence in the side yard. The applicant is seeking to construct along the eastern property line a 7.5 foot privacy fence, approximately 248 foot section in the side yard. Per section 419.13, fences 4B, agricultural districts, fences within a side yard or rear yard shall not exceed 6 feet in height. Therefore, the applicant is seeking a 1.5 height variance to construct 248 foot section of 7.5 foot fence. The applicant noted the proposed fence will be constructed of a wooden dog-ear fence panel and will provide a barrier from the neighboring property to the east. The applicant stated in the submitted letter, due to numerous large gatherings and issues with trespassing, he sees no other way to protect his property and family than to install a privacy fence along the eastern property line. At this time, no letters or calls of objection have been received. However, the applicant has supplied signatures of no objection from 2 of the surrounding properties, and we did include that on a map. Should the variance be requested, the variances are required, a 1.5 height variance to install approximately 248 foot section of 7.5 foot fence in the side yard. We did supply all the information, and as you can see, that proposed area is the area provided for the fencing. And this is a rendering that was submitted by the applicant to show that 248 foot privacy fence.
All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? If you'd like to speak up at the podium and add anything to what Ms. Rector provided. You go ahead and come up and please state your name and address for the record. And I think the board may have some questions for you as well.
William Pickard, and 1785 Samaria Road.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience while we've got the public hearing open who'd like to come up here and comment? Okay, if you go ahead and come up and state your name and address for the record, and we'll go ahead and work through these.
I'm Robert Moore, and I live at 1783, adjacent east of their property. I do got some questions on some trees that are on my behalf. on my property. One tree is on the property line. On what she's gonna do,
Okay. Is the applicant, is there anything you can add to that and come up here and maybe address that potentially?
Mr. Chair, I would have all the public comments and then have the applicant address those comments with the board once the public hearing is then closed.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else for the public comment portion who'd like to come up and speak on this agenda? Okay. All right, understanding that. We look at the applicant come back up here, please, and
If there's no other comment, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
all right.
Support.
There is a tree that is.
All in favor of, sorry about that. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, Mr. Applicant, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, there's a tree, a spruce tree that was planted by the prior neighbor of mine, but he planted it, it was on my property, and he was an older gentleman, he didn't know where the line was, and it's on my property about 1.5 feet. Mr. Moore's property, the trees, when I put the fence up, I will back trim them, but I won't back trim on his property.
Okay.
Which is, I think, is allowable, correct? Any trees hanging over the property line, they can back trim them back, correct?
As long as you give the property owner notice that you're going to do that and give them an opportunity to do it themselves. And if not, then you can back trim as long as you stay on your property. I would ask a question, though. Has the property been surveyed?
I had a survey back in 2018.
Are the survey pins there?
The stakes are there, and there was actually, from that, there are actual, when the surveyor went through and put in the wooden stakes, and they still have flags on them, on the wooden stakes, on a few of them.
Okay.
From 5 years ago.
And the pins are there with the surveyor's registered number?
On the back of the property, but on the front of the property, there's just pinched off pipes. And that's where they were. And he went with his satellite and was going around actually marking, so I had him mark, make sure that they were where they were.
Okay, so you and your neighbor know, based on that
Yes.
survey, where the trees are situated, whether they're on your side
Yes.
or his side?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I hope that answered your question with respect to the trees.
Mr. Potter?
Just a comment, you realize a tall fence won't stop noise.
I know that, sir. We just want some peace and privacy. If the noise continues, we'll have to call and complain about it if it keeps up.
Probably going to get worse now.
Yeah, and that's why we have mediators with badges on their shoulders.
Just had a couple questions about the property line here. On this line, there's no like berms or any other foliage that would block or screen or anything like that. It's just kind of open.
Yes. And I'm running it from the back of my house to the front of my pole barn on the east side of the property.
I'm ready to make a motion.
If you are, we're ready to hear it.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion that we grant the 1.5 foot height variance to construct a 7.5 foot tall privacy fence in the side yard of the residents of William and Mandy Pickard at 1785 West Samaria Road, Temperance, Michigan. Lot number 5802-009-01400. Practical difficulties, as he stated, was for peace and privacy.
One friendly amendment. Also, to separate the property from trespassing.
I'll accept that.
Okay. I guess one question I have Do we need any additional survey work, or is what's been provided sufficient to move forward from a building standpoint, and everyone's accepts where the property line is? Is that Mr. Goldsmith?
Well, if the property owner is confident that the line that's been established by his survey, then he can proceed. There could be some dialogue between him and the next door neighbor to see if they agree upon that line, but if he's had a certified surveyor survey the property, if the pins are there and you can determine the appropriate line, basically he will proceed at his own risk. We don't provide surveys. The township does not provide surveys. We do not provide opinions as to where the line is. That's a private civil matter. So if he has the confidence in the survey that he has previously commissioned, I think he said in 2018, then he can proceed and make sure that the fence is constructed. I always tell people at least a few inches on your side. There's always the issue of maintenance in the future, but that's up to them.
Understood. All right, we have a motion from Mr. Gore, support with Mr. Potter with a friendly amendment from Mr. Lake. I believe we're ready to go.
Did Mr. Potter accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Public comment's already been closed.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't really open that back up at this time.
You want to go ahead and call the vote? Can we do that?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Potter?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Aye.
Mr. Helm? Mr. Dersch?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll address that question to try to keep peace here with these
Understood.
folks.
Thank you.
There's no 18-inch requirement. It's not in our ordinance, and there's no, yeah.
I built homes in Ann Arbor area, and we had to build it 18 inches onto the homeowner's property for that whole.
That could be an ordinance requirement.
In Ann Arbor, I
Yeah.
don't know how this all works.
Yeah.
I'm new to this town.
Yeah. Just to try to keep peace between the two families, that is not a requirement in Bedford Township. Okay? We're done. We're done.
All right. We're looking for a motion to go ahead and open the second item on our agenda tonight for the public hearing regarding the property at 7984 Eastbrook, Temperance, Michigan, requesting a plus or minus 6 foot side yard setback variance for an existing dwelling garage per an R2 single family residential district.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Ms. Rector, if you could, please.
Yes. The applicant is Catherine Mahalik and Karen Tucker, 7984 Eastbrook Drive, Temperance, Michigan. Parcel number 5802-235-01100 on approximately .312 acres, R2A, single-family residential. The subject property consists of .312 acres, and the applicant is seeking a variance to construct a 22.5 by 10-foot attached garage addition to enlarge an existing structure in an R2A, single-family residential zoning district. The proposed addition to the structure provides a 5-foot side yard setback from the north property line and a 9-foot side yard setback from the south property. Per section 400-1800 Schedule of Regulations, in an R2A single-family residential zoning district, a minimum side yard setback of 8 feet and a total of 20 is required, provided a total of 14. Therefore, the applicant is seeking a 6-foot side yard setback variance to construct an addition to the existing dwelling portion, which is her existing garage area. The applicant stated in the submitted letter, as an amputee of the current shed to the rear of the property, it is difficult to access the proposed addition, and this will provide an area for storage to easily and safely access lawn equipment and other outdoor belongings. At this time, no letters or calls of objection had been received, and should the variance request be granted, the variance required is a 6-foot side yard setback variance to construct a 22.5 by 10-foot addition to the existing dwelling and garage.
Thank you, Ms. Rector. Is the applicant here that would like to come up and add anything to that? Okay.
If you have questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to comment on this agenda item? All right. Looking for a motion to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. If you could, go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please, and anything you'd like to add, or if you have any questions from the board.
Okay, my name is Catherine Mahalik, and I live at 7984 Eastbrook Drive in Temperance, Michigan.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Lake, you got some questions.
I do have a couple of questions for you. And you know, I'm going to ask these questions because I've read through this already, and I think it's something I would support, but I want to build what's called a practical difficulty.
Okay.
So a couple of questions I have for you is any alternatives that were looked at as far as building, you know, the addition to your house for like the purpose of keeping your yard equipment?
There was, he came out and said that I could build, like, I could add a little bit on and then go to the back of my garage, but the only problem with that is that I have, like, my air conditioning unit and my power line that I would have to move, and then if I build just a little bit of space, I would be like, it would be hard for me, since I'm an amputee, to like get my lawnmower in and out, and I don't want to, I already have a limited income anyway, so I'm trying to do it cost efficient for myself. And that was like the only option that I have, so that way I can get, I just need like a 8-foot garage so I can get my riding lawnmower from the back in my yard to like the front of my yard safely, so I don't hurt myself, honestly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions?
Is there any other questions from the board? I think Mr. Lake does bring a good point on the alternatives. That's one thing we look for is, you know, it would be kind of counterintuitive to have to move your power access to your house as well as your AC unit in this case to do this if there was no other option to move forward. Mr. Potter?
So if I understand, the AC unit and the electrical supply to your home are both on
The rear part where he suggested that I could add on another garage.
Is it in this area? Can you see the screen or can you see?
Yeah, right, okay, over to your right. It's like right in that area a little bit. Like it's right above there to where I would have to move all my central air unit. And I just paid to have a central air unit put in. And then my power line, I would have to like move in a different location.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see everyone writing feverishly over here. I think we're getting close to making a motion.
What's that? All right. If we're ready, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we grant the 6-foot side yard setback variance construct in addition to the existing dwelling at the property of Catherine Mahalik and Karen Tucker at 7984 Eastbrook Drive, Temperance, lot 5802-235-01100, citing practical difficulties, safety for the homeowner, cost to the homeowner, and cost that they would have to move the central AC unit if there was something else built behind the residence.
Any friendly amendments to the motion as presented?
I'll support it.
All right, support from Mr. Lake. I believe we'll go ahead and ready for the roll call, Ms. Rector.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Lake?
Aye.
Mr. Helm?
Aye.
Mr. Potter?
Aye.
Mr. Dersch?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Just come to the seat down. Okay.
All right, moving on to our third item on the agenda tonight, we're looking for a motion to open the public hearing for the property at 2923 West Rock Road, requesting a plus or minus 40-foot frontage variance and a plus or minus 280-foot frontage variance to create two parcels in an agricultural zone district.
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Rector, if you could, please.
Yes, the applicant is Harold III and Denise Williams, 2923 West Rock Road, Temperance, parcel number 5802-005-02400 on approximately 21 and a half acres, agriculturally zoned. The variances requested is to create a parcel 1 with a plus or minus 40-foot frontage variance and a parcel 2 of a 280-foot frontage variance. The existing parcel consists of approximately 21 and a half acres with 340 feet of frontage on Rock Road. The applicant is seeking to split the 21 and a half acre parcel into two parcels in an agricultural zoning district. Per section 418 schedule of regulations, a minimum of 5 acres and 330 feet of frontage is required. The applicant has submitted a plot layout, Exhibit A, showing parcel 1 resulting with 290 feet of frontage on Rock Road and maintaining the existing home and all accessory structures with a 16 and a half acres. And parcel 2, the vacant parcel, resulting with 50 feet of frontage on Rock Road and the remaining 5 acres. The applicant stated in their letter the property is split is being sought to assist in better maintenance of the land as the current owners are getting older and the parcel would be easier to maintain. At this time, the planning department has received no letters or calls of objection. Should the request be granted, the variances are for parcel 1 a 40-foot frontage variance and parcel 2 a 280-foot frontage variance. The applicant has advised that their intent is to leave as a shared drive, and our ordinance does allow 2 homes on 1 drive. And with the size of the frontage variance, the shared drive would be beneficial to both parcels.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Is the applicant here to let to speak up and add anything to Ms. Rector's notes?
I don't really need to add anything, but
Okay, if you could go ahead and please state your name and address for the record. And
my name is Harold Williams, 2923 West Rock Road.
is there anything you'd like to add at this time? If not, I'm going to ask if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to come up and speak to this matter.
I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing the 5 acres. I have 10 kids. My kids want to build on the back. I want to limit it to 1. I can legally, by what I understand, put a road down my left side and put 3 or 4 lots behind me. That's 5 acre parcels. I do not want to tie my property up like that. So by me doing what I'm doing will stop that. So I don't have nobody asking me.
Understood.
So I'll be honest, that's, okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to come up and speak to this matter? All right, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Any additional questions from the board?
Yeah, if he wants to.
Mr. Applicant, if you could, please, the board's got some additional questions for you.
So the goal is to split it and sell the 5 acre lot.
Not selling it.
Not selling it?
If it anything, my son is putting a house on it.
Okay.
That's where he's going to help maintain the property. It is not going to nobody else.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Potter?
Thank you. I guess that answers my question, because is it better now? Thank you. The practical difficulty that's stated is it's going to help with maintenance of the property. And I'm thinking, well, how can the splitting off of 5 acres, you still have 16 acres to maintain. How's that going to help? I mean, you're splitting off a wooded area, which doesn't require, at least in my mind, doesn't require a ton of maintenance anyway.
Right.
So, but you're hoping that your son being there will be the...
Yeah, because I mow probably 10 acres of it, and we have livestock. So it will help me by him taking care of my livestock and mowing my grass. So
So by splitting this off into that 5-acre parcel, would that land lock in that back? Because you said you could.
I wouldn't have an access to get back there, and I wouldn't be able to get enough 5-acre parcels out there to do that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't know that it's possible that you could build that in an ag-zoned district. I don't know if I might be looking for some expertise there, but I don't think that's a valid argument.
On the, putting in a road,
And yeah,
Building
subdividing
5
into
houses.
5.
you would have to go through either a type of development, and you would have to install a road to the Monroe County Road Commission standards. It would go through a full site plan, and then you would have to create each parcel of 5 acres, and they would have to have suitable water and suitable sewer.
Basically, it would, I think probably the only way to do it would be under a planned unit development.
Exactly. And that's what, right, and that's what I was told. Then I would have to name the street that goes back there and everything, yeah.
You would have to
I'm
go
not
through a
getting
full
into
site
that.
plan. Mr. Potter, could you please speak into your mic when you talk, though, so we can hear you?
Okay.
Thank you. It's before George comes out.
But I also think that that argument, I don't know if that holds water either, because if I look at the frontage of the property, there's not enough frontage to even be able to do something to that degree.
To create it with the PUD, where the houses, they would have to probably develop it, and if they were going to probably tear the house down and then put the road in, that would be when they worked with a design specialist of how they could get the road in. The accessory structures then would either have to be torn down or left with the home. I mean, it would be a full site plan, have to show all those setbacks, and then the development.
And then also, you mentioned a PUD, that's a different zoning, right? It'd have to be rezoned to be a PUD.
And it would go, once it went through the site plan approval process, they would submit as a concept, it would go to the planning commission, then to the township board, and then it would come back for a phase preliminary, and then go to the township board, and then come back for final preliminary, and then at that time with phase 1, should they desire to go in 1 or 2 phases, however the layout was, at that time, then the project would be rezoned with a public hearing, and then it would go back to the township board for the rezoning and approval for phase 1. There would be several drainage, Monroe County Drain, all the 8 reviewing agencies would be involved. Fire Department, Monroe County Road Commission, Monroe County Drain Commission. The water and sewer and the roads would become private within the PUD, but we still refer to those agencies to make sure they're in compliance.
Okay. So yeah, that's a laborious process. I mean, I've seen some of that happen, but not all together.
I'm sorry.
I think I've seen some of that happen during planning, my years in planning commission.
Yes, yes.
I've not
It would
seen
go
all of it
through
happen all at
Yeah,
once.
it would go through a development similar to probably the type of where Apple Creek is, Adler Estates, those are PUDs.
Yep.
One thing I'm trying to, number one is we got to get to the practical difficulty, but the second is, 40-foot variance, we've granted similar like that in the past, but a 280-foot variance, that's the hump that I'm trying to get over. If anybody's got anything to add.
Well, I mean, I think it's a very noble cause.
Yes.
But it's very challenging to come up with a practical difficulty here.
That's what I'm trying to get to. We need the practical difficulties.
Yeah, I agree. It's a challenge in this one, I think, to come up with that, and it is quite the ask. We've seen 10 feet, 20 feet, we're close. This is a long shot from being in compliance, and generally we try to not create more non-conforming lots if we can avoid it. That's usually our goal, is to not make things worse and try to make them better in the long run.
Open to listen to anybody on practical difficulties. I'm
Practical
No,
difficulties,
maybe- I
like, what do you
know-
mean? What do you mean?
So what we mean by a practical difficulty, if, say, for instance, there was a creek running straight through your property and it was
There's
impossible
not.
to split it in a way that's being suggested here, right? That would be like a practical difficulty to enjoy the lot the way the way it is, right? Or be able to split it appropriately. That would be kind of something that has to do with the land that's not self-created.
It's essentially a hardship that's not self-created. Something naturally, a well location, for example. You're not going to spend $10,000, $20,000 to redrill a well. We would consider that potentially a practical difficulty on driving the layout and the cause of why it has to be the way it's being presented. A septic tank would be an example as well. Based on the location of a septic tank, we've considered lot lines and changing layouts based on that, since it's not a practical thing to relocate and ask someone to do.
Well, I guess my question is, why do I have to have a practical difficulty to separate 5 acres with a 50-foot lot? It's actually 50 foot on that side, right?
You're asking for a 280-foot variance, which is a huge variance request.
But you can go all over this place and find it. Go right on Secret Road. The guy that butts up to my has 5 acres over there, has 2 houses on it, a pond, and horses. You can't have horses on less than 5 acres.
Mr.
And I'm just saying, I'm just throwing something to you because it's everywhere. I believe Brad just put a house in on Secret Road behind another house. How much frontage does that have?
Well, let's go to the practical difficulty discussion first. Mr. Goldsmith may correct me here, but as a part of the zoning appeals process, in order for us to consider a variance, there has to be a practical difficulty, and it can't be a self-created hardship. It has to be something that's out of your control, your means that you cannot correct, that we can consider to do something. And there's plenty of non-conforming lots and things that predate zoning that go way back before our time. Unfortunately, everything has to be considered for its own merits at this point in time. Your lot and your situation is unique from every other lot and situation in the township of Bedford. So we have to look at this at face value and understand exactly this situation and not consider the ones before it or after it in the future.
Okay.
Mr. Goldsmith, if you want to add anything to that.
You stated it accurately. Both the township zoning ordinance and Michigan law, the Zoning Enabling Act, Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, you can come to this board, which is a quasi-judicial body, and they have the authority to grant variances, usually dimensional variances. And you're asking for a dimensional variance because within your zoning district, you're required to have 300 feet of frontage and 5 acres of area. So you got plenty of area, you just don't have enough frontage, and so you're asking for a pretty expansive frontage variance. So in order for the board to grant that request, the law requires you to establish a practical difficulty. And Mr. Dersch, and they've explained pretty well what those types of difficulties are. You've mentioned a
section next to me that's only 170
and
split.
And there are parcels in agricultural districts that are less than 300 feet, 330 feet, and those. Some of those are what we call lots of record because they predated the zoning ordinance back in 1977. There have been variances granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals for less than 330 feet or less than 5 acres, but usually not as expansive as what you're asking for. So that's why they're quizzing you, what's the practical difficulty? What you want to, there's nothing wrong with what you want to do. It's a great idea, and I think they understand. Mr. Lake said it's a noble idea, but what they're supposed to do is to create a record and say, here's the practical difficulty presented by the property owner, the applicant, and because there is a practical difficulty, we choose to grant that variance.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Mr. Potter.
As an option, like was stated, you've got plenty of, in the parcel you want to split off, you got the proper amount of land. Is there any way you can just split the property in half?
No, I'm not going to split it in half. I mean,
Or take the 5 acres out of the front instead of the back.
no, that was a thought, but I'm not going to do that either. So, I mean, you know, I own 21 acres there. I see it everywhere. You know, like I told you, I'm 65. I'm not selling my property. It's easier for me to have somebody move in next to me that I know and take care of my property with me.
And that's where I want to get at for a potential practical difficulty is that, and I'm certainly not making any suggestion about your age, but you've said it yourself, you're getting too old to take care of 21 acres, and that by splitting this, that would alleviate a lot of your needs of somebody moving in next year that can help with that.
Yep.
And I think another practical difficulty that I could probably get to is eliminating a potential civil issue later on down the road between family members wanting more of those, because you said yourself you didn't want more of your family members building behind you, did you not? Or something
It's in
to
my
that effect?
property, though. It's my name. It's mine to tie it up the way I want to tie it up. And that's the way I want to tie it up.
Trying
To
to
me,
get
that stops my problem.
That's what I'm trying to get at as
You
a
know.
practical difficulty. I mean, are we close there for anybody?
This is a tough one. We see many of these come across our board here, and they're always challenging and unique in their own way, and I struggle a little bit with this one, I think. There's nothing about the land itself that's driving the way it's being split.
Usually the variances we get are, like you said, 10, 20, 30 feet. So, I mean, the 40 feet one I can even go along with. It's just the 280 that I'm getting there.
I know we had a similar case like this 2 meetings ago. It was a challenging,
Yes,
and we ended up not making the call on it.
yeah.
I know I do not have.
It's 50 foot across the front anyways, it's not 40. Right?
He was referencing
Can you give some can I give
I
some
think
clarification?
Mr. Gore is referencing a 40-foot variance as opposed to the 280.
Yeah,
What they're looking at is the difference. You're providing 50 and you're required 330. So the variance they would have to grant is 280 feet of frontage to create this parcel.
Right.
And then, so that's where, and then this parcel, you have 290 feet, but to get to 330 is a 40-foot frontage. So you need the two frontages, you need both variances to be able to go through the land division process. Keep in mind, this will, I believe, have to go, should it be granted, you will have to put the condition that it's contingent upon township board approval of the depth to width ratio as well, with the 50-foot
Of the
frontage.
what? Of the what?
Pardon me?
What did you just say?
I think when I spoke to you on the phone, because of the 50-foot, should they grant it, the depth to width is over 6-1. So you would have to go to the township board. But this is the first step to make a decision.
Okay.
I'm not ready to make a motion.
I was going to say, is there anyone who thinks they're close to making a motion on this, or any further discussion we wish to have?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give Mr. Potter some clarification too. If you look at the aerial portion when you discuss splitting the property in half,
Yes.
keep in mind that's the house. So he would still have to he would have to tear the house and the accessory buildings down because they would be in the middle of the property if he was to split it in half.
Well, if you look at if you're at the road looking at the property, the house is on the right side. I understand you got two
You'd
nice
still have to,
outbuildings on the left side that would become part of another parcel, and I wouldn't want to lose outbuildings either. But I'm just propose that as an option. The house is on the right side though, so we wouldn't be.
yeah, but I don't think he can still meet 330 feet of frontage where the
No.
house is. Yes, I was saying he'd
but
still have to come seek a
Still have
variance.
two variance requests.
You're right. I would not be able to get 140 on the other side of my house. Right.
Yeah,
can't
I don't
split it in
think
half.
if he was to split it down,
No.
because he only has 340 total feet, and he needs 330, so he would still have to seek a frontage he'd have to seek 2 frontage variances regardless.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, when you asked
It'd be
him,
more even. It was a more even split.
You wouldn't end up with a panhandle.
More conforming is
It
what.
would
I personally
conform
like what he's
to-
suggesting because it's privacy for both lots, getting a house in the back and a house up front. I mean, it's less impact for both neighbors instead of splitting it in half. That's my own personal opinion.
I'm going to go out on a limb and take a crack at it. I'll make the motion that we approve the variance in parcel 1 as a 40-foot variance, parcel 2 a 280-foot variance at the address of 2923 West Rock Road, Temperance, Michigan, belonging to Mr. Harold and Miss Denise Williams, lot number 5802-005-02400. Practical difficulty by Mr. Williams' own admission. With his age, it's getting more and more difficult to care for the 21 acres, and by splitting the parcel, he would have help from family, a son that would move in next door that would help maintain and care for the property.
Is there any friendly amendments to that motion? I know we discussed previously the depth to width ratio as well as support for that if we move forward.
I'd also like to add that it'd be contingent on the depth to width ratio approval by the Bedford Township Board.
Sorry, Ms. Rector, was that a hand raise? Okay.
no, I just wanted to make sure the depth to width was added.
Out of the corner of my eye.
That's
All right, if there's any additional friendly amendments to that or any further support to bring that to a vote, we'd be looking for that at this time.
I'll support.
All right, support from Mr. Helm. We'll go ahead and bring it to a vote, Ms. Rector.
Mr. Gore,
Aye.
Mr. Helm,
Aye.
Mr. Potter,
Nay.
Mr. Lake,
No.
Mr. Dersch.
Nay.
Motion failed.
All right.
Sorry. I was waiting for this. I like to fight.
All right. We'll go ahead and open up the floor to public comment at this time. If there's anyone else in the audience that would like to come up and make any additional comments on tonight's meeting. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to board and staff comments, starting with Ms. Rector.
Is the deadline the 15th? I think the deadline is May 15th for the June 5th meeting. I'll send an email out. I've been trying to keep everybody informed as soon as we get any applications, so you'll see something come. The deadline is Monday by noon, so I'll try to send an email out on that Monday, so that gives you ample time if you're unable to attend. Other than that, thank you for the great discussion. You guys always do a great job.
Thank you.
Nothing for me, thank you.
I have nothing.
Nothing from me.
Nothing for me.
Thank you, everyone, again, for great discussion and for coming to tonight's meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, again, the discussion was great. The first two were relatively easy. That third one, it was a tough one, and I struggled with that, but I took everything that everybody was saying into account, didn't overlook it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
No comment. Thank you.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Support? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.